Anxiety can feel like a constant weight, dragging you down, clouding your thoughts, and leaving you trapped in a cycle of fear and uncertainty. If you've ever felt like your mind races with worries about the future, or you're constantly replaying past mistakes, you're not alone. Anxiety affects millions, and for many, it seems like an endless struggle. But what if I told you that there's one simple thought, an ancient Buddhist secret, that has the power to destroy anxiety completely? Buddhist teachings have long provided profound wisdom on how to master the mind and live with peace. In fact, many of the greatest spiritual minds throughout history have suggested that the path to inner tranquility isn't about controlling the external world. It's about mastering your thoughts. And the key to releasing anxiety lies within this simple but powerful practice. In this video, we're going to explore this transformative thought, one that can completely shift your perspective, silence your inner turmoil, and lead you to a place of inner peace. This isn't some fleeting advice or a quick fix. It's an ancient teaching that has stood the test of time and continues to impact people worldwide. If you're ready to take control of your anxiety and embrace a calmer, more centered life, then this is exactly what you need to hear. Let's dive into the powerful Buddhist wisdom that can help you conquer your fears and finally find the peace you've been searching for. Be present in the moment. One of the most powerful ways to combat anxiety, as taught in Buddhism, is to anchor yourself in the present moment. This thought may sound simple, but its impact is profound. Anxiety often arises when our minds are trapped in the past or the future. We worry about what we've done or fear what might happen, but neither of these things exists in the present moment. The past is gone, and the future is yet to come. The only time we truly have is now. Buddhism teaches us that the present moment is a sacred space, and this idea is the cornerstone of mindfulness practice. When you focus on the present, you stop allowing your mind to wander into worry. You take a deep breath, notice your surroundings, and become aware of your own body. This brings an immediate sense of grounding and calmness. When you are fully present, you stop reliving past mistakes or worrying about what may never happen. The ancient practice of mindfulness teaches us to notice the sensations in our body, the rhythm of our breath, and the sights and sounds around us. By doing so, we learn that anxiety is a mental construct, often disconnected from the reality of the moment. You can practice being present by simply asking yourself, "What is happening right now?" This question forces your mind to focus, shifting it away from anxious thoughts and toward the reality of the moment. Whether you're walking outside, sitting quietly, or even doing something as simple as drinking water, immerse yourself in the experience. When you do this, the grip of anxiety begins to loosen. This simple shift in focus is incredibly powerful. It breaks the cycle of overthinking and worry, helping you regain control of your mind and emotions. The more you practice being present, the more you'll discover that your anxiety isn't rooted in the now. It's a byproduct of your mind wandering to places where it doesn't belong. Detach from negative thoughts. One of the fundamental teachings in Buddhism is the idea of detachment, specifically detaching from negative thoughts. These thoughts often fuel anxiety, and they can quickly spiral into overwhelming feelings of fear, doubt, and stress. But here's the ancient Buddhist secret. Thoughts are not who you are. They are just passing mental events, and with practice, you can learn not to attach your identity to them. When negative thoughts arise, the natural reaction is to latch onto them and let them dictate our emotions. For example, if you have a thought like, "I'm going to fail," it may trigger feelings of insecurity or fear. However, Buddhism teaches us that thoughts are impermanent and not necessarily a reflection of reality. They come and go, but it's your attachment to them that creates suffering. Imagine this. You're walking along a river and notice a leaf floating by. You could try to grab it, hold onto it, and make it stay in place. But no matter how hard you try, it will float away. Similarly, your thoughts are like leaves on the river of your mind. They flow naturally, and the key is not to grab them or try to control them. Let them pass by without resistance. Detaching from negative thoughts doesn't mean suppressing them. Instead, it's about observing them without judgment. When you notice a thought that triggers anxiety, simply acknowledge it without getting emotionally involved. You might say to yourself, "I see this thought. It's just a thought. not the truth. This simple act of recognition allows you to create space between you and the thought. In this space, anxiety begins to dissipate because you're no longer feeding it with your emotional reaction. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness meditation is especially helpful here. During meditation, you're taught to observe your thoughts without engaging with them. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to detach from negative thinking patterns in everyday life. When you notice an anxious thought creeping in, you can apply the same approach. Observe, acknowledge, and let it pass. The more you practice detaching from these thoughts, the less power they have over you. Eventually, you'll notice that they don't trigger the same level of anxiety or distress. The more you learn to detach from negative thoughts, the more you'll experience a sense of freedom. You'll realize that you don't have to react to every thought that arises. You don't have to live in fear of what your mind tells you. This freedom is at the core of Buddhist wisdom and is a key element in overcoming anxiety. Embrace impermanence. Another powerful Buddhist teaching that can help destroy anxiety is the understanding of impermanence, also known as anicca. In Buddhism, everything in life is seen as temporary, including our feelings, our circumstances, and even our thoughts. This awareness of impermanence can be incredibly liberating when it comes to anxiety, because it reminds us that no moment, no matter how overwhelming, will last forever. When you're caught in the grip of anxiety, it's easy to believe that your worries will never end, or that your fear will always be present. This feeling of being stuck can exacerbate the anxiety, as we often anticipate that things will stay the same or worsen. However, by embracing the idea that everything is transient, you can begin to release the attachment to anxiety and fear. When you acknowledge impermanence, you remind yourself that just as difficult situations come, they also pass. You may be anxious about a job interview, a relationship issue, or a personal challenge, but none of these things are permanent. They are just part of a larger flow of life. By embracing this understanding, you begin to detach from the need for certainty or control. In practical terms, this means recognizing that anxiety itself is impermanent. Even though it may feel overwhelming at the moment, anxiety cannot stay forever. It will ebb and flow, and when you accept its temporary nature, it becomes easier to face. You can tell yourself, "This moment will pass. I don't need to hold on to it." The more you embrace impermanence, the more you begin to trust in the natural ebb and flow of life. In Buddhism, anicca teaches us that change is the only constant. This truth can reduce the pressure we put on ourselves to keep everything in control. Anxiety often arises when we try to avoid change or control the uncontrollable. By accepting that everything is fleeting, you allow yourself to surrender to the flow of life instead of resisting it. This awareness of impermanence also encourages us to live more fully in the present moment. Since nothing lasts forever, we're reminded to appreciate the present for what it is. The beauty of a simple moment, like feeling the warmth of the sun or spending time with loved ones, becomes more vivid when we realize that it won't last forever. When anxiety creeps in, try to remind yourself that it's a passing wave. Much like a storm in the sky, it will eventually clear, and in its place will come a calm, clear sky. When you truly understand the impermanence of anxiety and all life events, you'll find that your attachment to your worries diminishes. This, in turn, allows you to live with greater peace and less fear. Cultivate compassion for yourself. Another ancient Buddhist principle that can significantly reduce anxiety is cultivating compassion, particularly self-compassion. Anxiety often arises when we are overly harsh on ourselves, when we judge ourselves for not being perfect or for failing to meet certain expectations. We can become our own worst critics, leading to feelings of inadequacy, guilt, and fear. However, Buddhism teaches that compassion is essential for mental and emotional healing, and this compassion must first start with ourselves. In the face of anxiety, it's easy to be critical. "I should be handling this better," or "I'm weak for feeling this way." This judgmental inner voice only exacerbates the anxiety, turning it into something much bigger than it needs to be. What if, instead of judging yourself, you could approach your anxious thoughts with kindness and understanding? What if, in the midst of your struggles, you could treat yourself with the same compassion you'd offer a close friend in distress? The Buddhist concept of metta, loving kindness, can be incredibly powerful in cultivating this kind of self-compassion. It's a practice that involves extending love and goodwill, not only to others, but to yourself as well. By practicing metta toward yourself, you can begin to replace self-criticism with self-acceptance. Instead of seeing your anxiety as a flaw or a weakness, you begin to understand it as part of the human experience, something that everyone faces at some point. You can start by repeating phrases to yourself like, "May I be at peace," or "May I be free from anxiety and fear." These loving kindness phrases, which you might recognize from meditation practices, are designed to counteract the negative self-talk that often accompanies anxiety. With regular practice, these phrases begin to shift your internal dialogue from one of judgment to one of support. You start to see yourself with more empathy and less blame. Self-compassion doesn't mean allowing yourself to stay in a negative state. It means accepting yourself as you are, without judgment. It's about being kind to yourself when anxiety arises, instead of trying to force it away or beat yourself up for feeling it. Anxiety, after all, doesn't define you. It's a temporary emotional state, and treating yourself with compassion helps you realize that your worth is not determined by your struggles. The more you practice self-compassion, the more you'll notice a shift in your mindset. You'll become less reactive to anxiety because you'll stop seeing it as something to be ashamed of. Instead, you'll approach it with patience and understanding, knowing that it's simply part of your current experience. This shift in perspective can bring a deep sense of peace and relief, allowing you to feel less burdened by your worries. By cultivating self-compassion, you not only ease anxiety, but also nurture a sense of inner peace. You create a foundation of love and acceptance that will support you when anxiety arises, allowing you to face it with a calm and understanding heart. Let go of attachment to outcomes. One of the most profound ways to reduce anxiety, as taught in Buddhist philosophy, is by letting go of attachment to specific outcomes. Anxiety often arises when we fixate on a desired result and fear that it won't come to fruition. We obsess over how things should turn out, and when the outcome is uncertain, our minds race with worry. The Buddhist teaching of non-attachment offers a liberating perspective. When we let go of our attachment to specific outcomes, we free ourselves from much of the anxiety that weighs us down. Buddhism teaches that attachment to outcomes, whether it's a job, a relationship, or any goal, leads to suffering. This is because in a world of constant change, things rarely unfold exactly as we expect them to. When we cling to the idea of how things should be, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Anxiety arises because we are constantly trying to control the uncontrollable. Imagine being in a situation where you are desperately hoping for a particular outcome, such as acing an important exam or landing your dream job. The more attached you become to this specific result, the more anxious you feel. Your mind begins to fixate on the outcome, and you start doubting your abilities or fearing failure. But what if you could detach from this result and simply put in your best effort without worrying about the end? Non-attachment doesn't mean that you stop caring about your goals or stop striving for success. Instead, it means that you release the need to control the result. You trust in the process and accept that, regardless of what happens, you can handle whatever comes your way. This shift in mindset alleviates the pressure and fear that come with attachment to outcomes. Buddhism teaches us to practice samsara, or the acceptance of life's cyclical nature. Every situation is part of a larger flow, and by letting go of attachment to any one result, we can ride that flow with greater peace and resilience. When we stop forcing the universe to comply with our desires, we start to accept that the outcome is often beyond our control. In this acceptance, anxiety loses its grip on us. You can practice letting go of attachment by focusing on the present moment, just as we discussed earlier. Instead of obsessing over the future, you redirect your energy into giving your best effort right now. When you focus on doing your best in the present, you release the need for a specific outcome. This brings peace because you stop measuring your worth by the results you achieve. This doesn't mean abandoning your goals, but rather recognizing that you are not defined by any one outcome. Life is full of unexpected turns, and sometimes the most meaningful experiences come from what we didn't plan for. When you let go of attachment to outcomes, you open yourself up to new possibilities and reduce the anxiety tied to a fixed idea of success. By practicing non-attachment, you give yourself permission to live freely without the constant pressure to control every outcome. This freedom brings peace and helps you approach life with a calm, open mind, ready to embrace whatever comes next. In conclusion, the ancient Buddhist teachings offer powerful tools to destroy anxiety and cultivate peace in our lives. By embracing the present moment, detaching from negative thoughts, accepting impermanence, cultivating self-compassion, and letting go of attachment to outcomes, we can transform our relationship with anxiety. These practices remind us that anxiety is not a permanent state. It is simply a passing wave in the ocean of life. By applying these principles, you begin to shift from being at the mercy of your thoughts and emotions to becoming the observer of them. You learn that your thoughts do not define you, and you don't have to be controlled by your fears or worries. Instead, you begin to feel empowered and at peace, even in moments of uncertainty. As you continue to practice these Buddhist teachings, you'll find that anxiety holds less power over you. The more you embrace the wisdom of impermanence, compassion, and non-attachment, the more you'll experience freedom and calmness in your daily life. If you found these teachings helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear about your experiences and how these practices have impacted your journey.